All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And we have a really exciting session today. I'm super thrilled to have Adir Zimerman join us for this session. For those of you who don't know, Adir is the founder of the founder-led revenue system, Rainmakers. He's a thought leader in the sales space, brings tons of experience from the B2B selling arena. He was previously VP sales at Lytico, with Market Beyond, and before that at Screamo, taking the company from idea to international distribution. And I think what makes this conversation super interesting is really the fact that we come from different worlds. So Adir really has tons of experience with low touch and high touch sales through Outbound, and has also built the complete business around that. And I think that would make for a great conversation. I'm super excited and happy to have him with us. So thanks for joining me, Adir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Cool. Maybe you want to just give us a quick background from, first of all, from your journey, and then we can talk more about Rainmakers and some of the insights that you've had working with earlier and mid-level stage companies, helping them build go-to-market organizations.
Yeah, sure. So let's try to build some motivation to hear me out here. Currently, I'm the founder of Rainmakers. It's basically a methodology for founder-led sales, B2B startups, which means that they are in the early stage of their days, and it works like other methodologies for more later stage, like Sandler's or Challenger. But this is fit more toward the early stage that we can talk later. What's the meaning of that? Prior, like you said, worked in a couple of VP of sales roles. I established my own company, took it from idea to a global one, working with the biggest companies in the world, working directly with the biggest CEOs in the world. So I have kind of a lot of experience with working from big enterprise all the way down to SMBs. I'm not a B2C guy. I'm a pure B2B, mainly early stage. I also have some technical background. I was a CTO back then, like maybe 20 years ago. So this happened as well. So I bring this kind of orientation of founder, product guy, R&D guy, and of course, sales guy. This is what I do today, and I'm enthusiastic of sales methodology. And like I said, because I'm working with early stage, most of my focus is about outbound, low touch, high touch, those type of things, where inbound and no touch are for a different angle or for down the road for more mature companies.
Awesome. Yeah, and in our kind of prep conversation, I think we found out that we don't agree on on a few things, and I think that this is what really is interesting, because whenever you hit those places of I don't say disagreement, but we have different points of view, I think that's when real learning begins, right? When you're just getting reaffirmations for things you believe in, it pretty much keeps you on the same path. But whenever you get kind of a new thought or an idea that challenges your existing belief system, that always drives you to think about these things. So that's why I'm happy that we have this chance to kind of unpack some of those things. So I want to just drive right through this. Is there anything else you want to mention maybe before about Rainmakers and kind of the activity there that you want the audience to know before we dive into kind of all the meaty stuff?
Sure thing. So Rainmakers is a methodology for founder-led stage of the startup. It's evolving around lead generation, deal closing, and customer success. We're implementing it through a Mary Poppins style program where an active C-levels and VPs are joining your company as rainmakers, as mentors, and working with the startup as fractional. So you have kind of a fractional CRO that built with you the go-to-market. You have a fractional head of sales development helping you with lead gen, fractional VP of sales helping you with deal closing, fractional customer success helping you with the customer success. For more mature companies, we have also a fractional partnership or channels, and this is how we do it.
Awesome. So you bring in the SWAT team to really kind of tackle all those big challenges.
Definitely, yeah, you nailed it.
Awesome. Cool. So let's start with a bit of controversy. Outbound seems to be dead. Hearing and reading a lot about it in LinkedIn, tons of companies are saying, it's a buyer-led world. There's no point of trying to reach out. They will come to you once they're ready. What do you have to say to those people that say that outbound is dead?
Yeah, probably your algorithm in LinkedIn shows you different things from what I see. I saw that recently PLG was dead because of OpenView, the VC that kind of created this kind of term. blew up basically and disappeared. So just, I think it's a matter of the way that you look at it. So I'm working with companies that are in their early stage, which means they just reaching out to their design partners or to their first low-hanging fruits, right? You have so in your service available market, you have actually another small segment of the low-hanging fruits. These are the companies that I'm working with. And I think that there is a rule of thumb. If you need to create or if you need to do some market education, you cannot do inbound in an early stage. Why is that? Because if you are doing inbound in an early stage, you need a lot of money. You need to take a lot of money and pour out in order to reach out to people that don't know that they need you. They don't know what they don't know, so they don't look for it. And if they see it, they need to really dive into it and understand. So if you're a company that is yet another and going directly into a rat race, yeah, put a lot of money on SEO, make sure that you have the lowest price, the best features out there, and you're yet another. You don't need to educate anyone. They will just go into your website anyway, look at the pricing, and will take a decision. But if you're an innovative solution that needs to educate this market, outbound is the only way for you. This is something very important to understand. You need to do low touch and high touch. Two reasons for that. First of all, if you think even on PLG, let's talk about product perspective. Product perspective, it takes about 2 years to get your product from zero to a good PLG product. What happens during those 2 years? Learning curve, which means that throughout the first 2 years, you have gaps in your product. Who is going to compensate on these gaps? At first, the SDR, then the account executive that do the sale, then the customer success person. They will compensate on those gaps and they will convey the right message at the right time to make sure that the customer won't churn or will not close loss during our sales process, right? So this is why you need the PLS, product-led sales motion, in the first 2 years before you switching into a PLG, product-led growth motion.
Right.
And by the way, it's not have to be switching. Sometimes it's two motions that goes in parallel. I will give you an example for that. I'm a classic PLS, product-led sales. I'm doing outbound to companies. First year, and I have some nice customers, and they actually use the product and it's going well. Now I want to do expansions in those companies. If your product works well, and you have the ability to turn it into a PLG inside those companies, think about enterprise. Enterprise are huge. They are a universe of themselves. Once you put a foot in the door with the sales team, it can go from there PLG style. But this is PLG style inside the company. Okay, so those two terms are not one or the others. It's many times something that works in parallel and they can switch in their priority as we grow. So the bottom line here is strategize correctly, understand those buzzwords and understand that they are tools that needs to be fit to the specific situation you're at.
And this approach is not just for early stage companies. It could be for mature that maybe are launching a new product, right? That has this educational effort, right? So it's about what you're selling, regardless of maybe the stage of the company, but whether this product needs this kind of more high touch or even low touch, but outbound led approach, as you say, to start using that feedback. So, and we also talked about the importance of tying product feedback into those processes. I think that's something that you and I know a lot of companies sometimes miss, the fact that there is no feedback loop that's really closing between sales and product in an effective way. What's your experience there in terms of, or how to build this loop in a better way?
Yeah, I think so. Again, so, I will speak from both angles because now I'm working with early stage companies, but I was a VP of sales and CEO of more mature companies. So let's talk about this feedback loop. First of all, there is a very interesting research that was made like 25 years ago by Harvard Business Review called the Sales Learning Curve. It actually talked about the importance of involvement of the founders in the sales process. And it showed a correlation between the involvement of the founders and how long into the company growth they were involved and the success rate of those companies. The reason for that is because in the early days of a company, which probably falls down to the first 2 to 3 years, there is a lot of feedback coming from the field, from the customer, regarding our assumptions that we build our product and technology and go to market on. So we need to iterate the whole time. Now, here's what you need to understand as a founder, as a leader, that we have two types of players on the field here. One are the kind of the salespeople. It's SDRs, account executives, customer success. They work according to playbook. They do the same thing every day according to playbook and according to the way that you do some sales enablement for them, product enablement, and the way that you onboard them. Meaning that you need to actually chew for them a lot of the things that they do, but from that moment, they will run with it. This is what they know how to do best, and they're optimizing on this. On the other hand, we have the leaders, we have the product people, we have the founders. They need to think about assumptions and create this kind of plan reality strategies based on that. The feedback loop is that you have those people that just run the playbooks, but they engage with the customer. Now, do you see the issue? The ones that engaging with the customers are not the one that take the
writing the play
and kind of creating those things and check if they were correct or not. So
Right.
you need to have this kind of connection, and each person needs to understand his responsibility, or each type of the stakeholder need to understand his responsibility. An SDR, an account executive, a customer success person, a marketeer, they all need to understand the responsibility of if they learned something from what they did, they need to send this feedback back into the company. You looked on your website, you learned how people engage with your website. You saw something that can provide us some feedback regarding one of our assumptions. Loop it back, send it back to your team, send it back to the product. By the way, I think that all the product people should be on the CRM, and they should be part of the correct characterization of the CRM to make sure that all the information that is gathered from marketing, sales development, sales, customer success, they actually can view it and analyze it. It makes a lot of sense when I'm talking about no touch, but when I'm talking about outbound, low touch, high touch, people make the mistakes and think, no, this is not related to this type of act. This is only for inbound and no touch. So definitely it's relevant for high touch. So just to conclude about this thing, feedback loop is super important. The field people need to understand that they have the responsibility to bring the feedback back into the company. The leadership, the people of the product, have the responsibility to look into this information. And if they don't have way to get this information, go on the line with your reps. If you are not the one that do that, in early stage, the founders are doing that, but go on the line with your reps and engage your customer. This is the only way to actually validate your assumption and improve your product.
And so one of the other topics we talked on this notion is that there's so much noise today, right? For buyers, there's so many solutions. It's an explosion, right? I think 15 years ago, when you were looking for a solution, there were maybe a handful of products. You would go to the sales rep, you would get information, you would make your decision. And the sales organization role today, in many respects, is helping navigate through all the noise. That also creates an additional responsibility of the sales organization to really understand the product, the ecosystem. We talked about the consultative aspects of sales today. And do you feel that we're moving from this kind of play the playbook, or the ability to replay a certain tune, to a more flexible kind of sales executive or account executive, which can improvise, which is kind of closer to what a founder would be able to do in terms of improvisation or being able to respond? Or in your eyes, it's about building a correct group. So you have a sales engineer maybe, and you have an account executive, but that changing environment, where in such a high noise environment, and the need for the sales to be a product expert, in a sense, to really understand the product. This isn't like, okay, I'm going to take it back and ask. How do you see sales organizations adapting to this environment of high noise, need to be consultative, and what can you recommend from earlier stage? How do you set the right foundations for a proper go-to-market motion in this noisy environment?
Yeah, I think, okay, let's try to connect everything to this kind of to the consultative approach and connect it to what you spoke earlier, that today customers are way, way more educated, right? If until a year ago, everything was online, today, all the information is online, and I have Gen AI to summarize it for me and to answer my questions. So why the hell do I need an account executive to tell me what I need to know? I have everything very highly accessible to me in a fraction of the time it will take me to go on the line and talk to an account executive. So yes, it demands more knowledge, more experience. Two things will happen here, I guess, in the next years. One, because we need to be more knowledgeable. Sales development representative, SDRs, this role is going to be gone. The first reason is because now we have a lot of Gen AI tools that can help us to do the same work by ourselves. Right now, we can do everything with Gen AI other than phone calls. But I already know about solutions that do a very good job with doing the cold call, Gen AI style. I guess next year, the year after, it will become a commodity.
Wow.
And the meaning of that is that account executive can take his knowledge and experience and put it to the work of the sales development by himself without taking too much time of his throughput. Because this is the reason in the first place SDR was invented about a decade ago. So this is one side of the Gen AI. The other side is that your customer is more educated, which means that you need to have people with more experience and more knowledge, and this falls down into the AE, because the SDR definition is someone that just starting his way in the sales world, so he doesn't have a lot of experience, right? And we want to train him and onboard him really fast. And we want to do that to many SDRs. On every AE, we want to have about 2 SDRs. So we need them to ramp up really quickly. And we know that we have them in this role about a year and a half, 2 years, and that's it. They will move from here to account executive. It won't work anymore because we need someone more knowledgeable. And this lead us to the consultative approach. So what you can do if your customer knows everything. So basically, yes, the customer knows everything, but this actually led to another thing. Your customer can be a C-level executive in eBay, okay? His day-to-day has a lot of things that he needs to take care of. Let's say he's like a chief data officer, okay? So you have a lot of things that he has his routine with his team on Monday and what he's doing on Friday and whatever. And guess what happened in 5:30? His kid's going to a basketball game, right? And he wants to be there. And throughout his agenda for the week, he doesn't have buy your product. No, he has his own agenda. This is his role. He does not need to buy your product. And what's the meaning of buy your product? Buy your product means have an evaluation process about a specific product, if it fits the organization needs, and how we actually going to integrate it into our processes. This is a lot of work. And this is exactly where account executive comes handy. Account executive is actually running the evaluation process for the company, which means that you need to take a consultative approach and come like a McKinsey analyst and basically do those third steps. These are the 3 steps that we do in Rainmakers when we build our approach. We said, first of all, analyze. We're analyzing the needs of the customer and we actually write it down. Then we build the business requirements, not for our solution. What are the business requirements of the business if they will go out and search for a solution for the needs that we agreed on in the analyze stage? Only then, if I agreed about the needs, the timeline, and how the business requirement for a solution will look like, then only I can say, by the way, I know that I'm here to consult you, but I'm also working for this company, and I want to educate you about this company's solution. And actually, this is only the time, in that time you can pitch your product, not beforehand. And this is actually basically telling this chief data officer from eBay or Best Buy, you tell him, listen, sit back, relax, you will be on time for your kid basketball game. I'm running the evaluation process for you, creating for you all the materials, everything you need. And the only thing you need to do is to take a decision. And you know what, Mr. Customer, it's okay if you will not choose my solution, but I will help you to do the evaluation process. This is the only reason for customers to talk to account executives these days. Otherwise, everything else is accessible. And guess what? There is a high chance the customer, even if you're not the best solution in the market, will go with you because you're already on top of things and you build the trust as a trustable consultant. So he will say, you know what, he will take care of me down the road as well. And if his product won't perform well, I know that I have someone to count on. So this is kind of in a nutshell, consultative approach in the age of Gen AI.
Yeah, I think this actually ties to things if we extend it to marketing as well, right? It's this approach of, and I think the operative word is trust, right? Because why would I go to somebody and get their input? Because I trust them. How do I establish trust, well, I need to build it. It takes time, right? I need to be able to build that across time. And this is, I guess, where probably marketing's role need to also align itself as a consultative support for companies and also framing the problem, right? It's not just I need a solution. It's how to think about the problems, to acknowledge the problem, right? It's the first thing to say, hey, actually, that's an issue that we need to A, acknowledge that it exists, and B, to prioritize it. We need to prioritize solving it, because maybe I acknowledge it exists, but I don't think that it's something that I want to deal with now. But if we're kind of pushing on it, Adir, I think that the big problem we're seeing today and is how to reach those people. There's, like you said, they're so overwhelmed. They have their agenda, they have their problems, they have their teams. They're not going to open, or they're not going to be highly receptive to cold calls, for example, or cold outreach. That's a problem. How do we address this problem that people have so little time? They have more, what we call the gates, right? They have more and more gates between them and the world, right? They have the spam filters, they have the cold blocks, they have, we talked about Gen AI from the selling perspective, but you're going to also have Gen AI from the vetting or filtering perspective. I'm going to have a Gen AI listen to the other bot trying to sell to me and tell them, to get the F off. So how do you deal with this penetration, and maybe to crystallize it, to capturing attention of your audience and your market?
Oh yeah, this is like, this question is very wide. So I think the answer for everything, by the way, it's focus, right? We cannot push something like too wide. We have limited sources and want to get to someone very specific and get his attention. So focus. And where focus start in a proper go-to-market strategy. A proper go-to-market strategy means that we know who is our ideal customer profile for this stage. An example, in the majority of the early stage companies, it will be the low-hanging fruit, this portion of the service available market that has some motivation right now, though my product is not as good as it can be in the future, they will still use my solution, right? So we need to be very accurate. So we need to choose the right ICP, ideal customer profile, which means it's the right companies. Then within those companies, I need to really understand my personas, what they do in their day-to-day, what are the challenges in the day-to-day, not related to my product, why they are not sleeping at night, which means their risk, their fears, and what they are being measured upon, okay, the KPIs that they are being measured. And once I understand that, I can connect this and the feature of my product into something called the value proposition. It's speaking in my personal language and providing him the reason to actually be interested in my solution. So I think that this is a very important thing. So once you have those things, now you can execute. How you're executing. So we have two tools, right? We have the outbound tools and the inbound tools. Outbound tools will be a sales development representative that calls this person, or an account executive that use a network, see who is connected to this guy and will ask for a warm intro. So this is opening the door. How we getting his attention? Pitching the right value proposition via email, via LinkedIn, via call, in a meeting, whatever, but speaking the right value proposition. But this caused another issue because we're talking about outbound motion. Here's a big mistake that people do. They think that there is outbound versus inbound. No, that's not the reality. Again, like PLG and PLS, those are actually things that are happening in parallel because our span of attention is so small in this time and era that we need awareness to something that we do if we want to get back to it. Otherwise, we completely forget about it, right? Just think about what's happening when you look at your phone for a second. You just drone into this world and forget about everything else. So I want to be top of mind with the prospect I just engaged and goes into my sales pipeline. And this is actually where the inbound motion of marketing comes into play. And I want him to see me in his social network. I want him maybe to see me on a billboard next to his office, in the radio, on the way to work. Wherever is able to see me, I want him to see me. I can engage with him through a newsletter, through content, through whatever. But I need to be there. I need to be present in his life.
So I want to press harder. I want to press harder on this because you said, let's say I understand the ICP, I understand the problem, I understand the value proposition. Where do you see the importance of signals, inbound signals, intelligent signals, to be able to not just be relevant to an ICP, but also be timely? Because there's a question of, I know this problem, or now this is actually what I'm trying, and I'm willing to allocate attention to hear out your solution, right? As opposed to, this is something for, let's say, the middle of 25, so I'm not going to even bother engaging because that's a problem that I prioritize for 25. So then the question is, how do you, maybe you have examples of how you, the importance of those signals in your experience, maybe they're not. And if so, how are they being linked? If there's some example you can share, around this.
Okay, so let's define signals. Signals can be something that comes from the product, right? From a use in a product. It can come from visiting our website. Signals can come from a webinar that we're conducting and something is happening there with this person. It's multiple points of engagement. This relates to the whole account-based marketing approach or account-based sales approach. So I think that for me, and again, I'm talking about more of early stage companies, the bigger the organization, the personal you need to get. The bigger the organization, the more personal you need to get because there are more people there. So big organization on one hand needs to have some kind of an enterprise approach. On the other hand, also almost a B2C approach because so many people engaging with you. At the end of the day, you're engaging with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people top. But think about Walmart, that I engaged with Walmart. Millions of people work for Walmart in 11 different countries globally. No chance any outbound team, any sales team will understand how this organization reacting to us. We need to analyze way more signals to figure out, to see indication where we should go. So I think that per your question and to answer that, early stage companies, signals is like, this is too much. This is like, you cannot handle this. Having said that, if you go after big organizations and you are into expanding your solution in this organization to other countries, let's take Coca-Cola, for example. Coca-Cola works in every country in the world other than North Korea. And I think Cuba, but I'm not sure, maybe Cuba they're already working in, right? How do I get the signals? Which country should I go next? If I don't, like the organization itself cannot even tell me where to do that. But if I can see some traction into my website and some signals happening around that, because campaigns of Coca-Cola attract other Coca-Cola's companies from all over the world to engage, right? So this is the only reason where I will use it in an early stage. For a later stage, for sure, like you want to do, marketing is the only department that is active throughout the whole life cycle of the customer. They're active when you do the lead gen, then they're active when you do the reach out of the outbound, they're active when you have those customers in the pipeline, and when the customer is actually in, when you have your customer and when you do the expansion, marketing is there throughout the whole time and the engagement with your digital assets happening the whole time. So once you're capable of actually analyzing it and putting into practice, go ahead and do that. I believe it's happening around 1.5, 2 years and beyond when you have your at least high tens of customers or enterprise in early days.
Got it. So if I'm just kind of playing back, you're saying early stage, don't try to fuss around too much with getting everything right. Get out the door, try to connect and engage. Again, be relevant and be specific. But only as you're trying to scale, the importance of trying to be effective in this motion. So it's more about efficiency maybe rather than effectiveness to some extent. But yeah, I think that's at least from my side. I think that what we're seeing in terms of use of signals, they could also be, for example, helpful to understand where your go-to-market really is. So a lot of times, we founders feel like we have product market fit. All right, we need to go scale. We need to start executing a lot of these kind of bigger playbooks. And then many times we fall flat on our face because we're not really where we think we are in terms of our go-to-markets, maturity, positioning, brand awareness, all that stuff. And so it could be maybe not to support an outbound motion, but to help leaders evaluate their maturity or do kind of the self-assessment of where I am to try and pick up those signals as a way to validate their marketing's effectiveness or go-to-marketing effectiveness in that sense. But yeah, I think that to your point, if you're going at those earlier stages, probably bigger, again, priorities, what you should prioritize. Prioritize deeply understanding your customer at the personal level as much as possible. I know we just have a few more minutes. I just wanted to ask about your predictions. We had a really interesting talk about where you see outbound evolving in the next few years. What are your predictions as to how it's changing and maybe how organizations can start preparing for those changes or even leverage them and maybe outmaneuver bigger, slower companies in that sense? So what are the opportunities there that companies can take advantage of?
Yeah, it's actually kind of to recap everything that we talked about. So definitely we going into Gen AI going to change a lot of things in the sales world. It's already changing a lot of things in the sales world. Just taking it from the perspective of how you work with ChatGPT, and we have also designated tools that using AI in order to help us, which means that roles that not is not related to knowledge will probably disappear. If it's like if your if your role can be automated, so that's it, you're gone. And the ones that really heavily dependent on knowledge, this one will stay. We can see that still there is some advantage for being a more of hunter and hunter and farmers, you know, the one that with the high EQ, this is still have some advantage.
Mhm.
So I guess that those will just become kind of a hybrid of Gen AI plus a human person. We will see an easier way for people to approach customers. We're going to see a more complex evaluation processes, which means that the account executive will be more accountable to what's happening on the customer side from evaluation perspective, and we'll manage it more as a project. We can see already supportive tools for those things like aligned and recapped, that there are mutual action plan solution that help us to work through virtual room with our customer on the evaluation process. So we actually building kind of a shared folder together, and we start to move information
Mhm.
between those two organizations. So we will see this high involvement for both. I'm not speaking here about inbound and no touch, because clearly everything that relates to signal, we will be able to process more things and to delegate more analysis toward the
And
machine
automation, right?
and automate those things. But like I said earlier, if we're talking early stage, you need to take a decision. No touch, and then you need to go all in with signals, whatever, because the competition is fierce, or outbound, and then build it gradually.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I think that we are just scratching the surface. We have this compute power and analysis power to ingest and analyze information, and we're still, I think, not really, of course, maximizing its potential. We're just scratching the surface of what can be done. And whatever we're doing as humans is input output. It's right. We're getting information, processing it, and being able to do that at scale is definitely going to change a lot of this go-to-market landscape. So it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, I just want to, first of all, thank you for spending the time and speaking to me today. And also tell the audience how they can reach out, how they can reach you and connect with you. What's the best way and learn more about Rainmakers?
Yeah, sure. The best way is to just follow on LinkedIn. I'm putting everything there, so you can learn from all the knowledge that I'm spreading and other people are spreading. I have a lot of content that I'm also interviewing many people, and like to share the knowledge and also get access to our Rainmakers, the other people that work in Rainmakers and kind of help those companies. So search for me on LinkedIn, Adir Zimerman. There is only one like this in the whole
One and
world.
only, the one and only.
Adir Zimerman, yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. And yeah, tons of knowledge. If you're passionate about go-to-market, about sales, about outbound, and want to understand kind of and how to stay ahead of the curve, definitely follow, subscribe, and hear the and get great stuff that Deer's publishing. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure, and looking forward for next talks then.
Likewise, likewise.
All right, cheers.
Bye.